Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing something a little bit different on the channel. So pretty much I've been doing a lot of live streams over on Altaspace Deluxe. Go subscribe if you're interested. And just last week, the whole AWS Amazon Web Services thing happened, and I talked about it on the live stream, and I wanted to create something for the main channel, but I haven't really had a whole lot of time doing that. So the rest of this video is just an excerpt from the live stream. Again, go follow there if you're interested. Otherwise, go enjoy this deep dive. But basically, this was the big news alert that went out to everyone on today. Basically it says on October 20th, i.e. today, at 12:11 a.m. PDT, which I'm 85% sure that's Pacific time. I don't know what else PDT means. I usually get rid of because it's standard and daylight. I think it's the two things, because of this amazing thing called daylight savings. It switches, but anyway, AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. People don't know what AWS is, and let me explain it a little bit before we get fully into this. Basically, Amazon, as well as just a lot of things besides just being able to sell you things. They also have a bunch of other companies, including AWS, which is a hosting platform where you can host your website, etc. And mainly what it does is it hosts a lot of data and databases and stuff like that. Not like your ChatGPT databases, but like if you have a large like database of like customers or clients, you would store it on there. Using like Dynamo AB and stuff like that. Basically, there was an issue with Dynamo DB API endpoints in North Virginia, US East 1 region. And it just kind of knocked it out everywhere from what I understand. It says they're fully looking to restore the service as quickly as possible. It has also affected Amazon.com, which is why a lot of people couldn't use Amazon today. A lot of subsidiaries, which is a lot of I know it was like Snapchat was affected. A bunch of different like delivery services were affected. A bunch of different like restaurants, if they have like a mobile app or have like some sort of online component with it, were affected, because it's decently a pretty cheap way of being able to have an online platform in a way. Think of it as kind of like a Shopify, but instead of creating like a web store, it is like creating a way to connect with other people through the internet. But I also pulled up an article about it just so we have an idea of kind of what it's about, but also I want to look up and to go with the more of the hardcore stuff first before we get fully into it. Basically, this was what, like, with our school accounts and stuff like that, we were sent a link to this, and I'm not going to read through all of it. I happily send you to go do this if you are interested into it and want to learn more about it, etc. But it is detailed hour by hour, pretty much, updates about everything they're doing and what is happening and when they're going to update you, which is the coolest thing ever, in my opinion, just because it's not only shows how much, in a way, they care, but also how much they want to make sure that their clients are put in hold. Because keep in mind, it's like a lot of these big companies who store all their data and all of their stuff on there to be able to run their software and stuff like that. You're talking millions of dollars that are probably put through this. And I mean, just look at all of these 142 services, which, I mean, to be fair, a lot of these are like AWS and then like a side program or whatever for it. A bunch of the different Amazon things they have, Amazon Chime, which I'm assuming that's like the Chime service, which is like, I think, isn't it like a banking app or something like that? I don't know. There's a bunch of just different things they have here. Most of this we as in the collective normal users will probably never know what really most of this means. I mean, I could tell you what a lot of it is, like if I go step by step, but I don't feel like doing that. But pretty much, it is so interesting just to look at this and be like, wow, they actually cared about their like people that use their program, and they are giving pretty much hour by hour updates, sometimes within significant times of being able to do things, and just telling them what's happening, what they're doing, etc., and giving them updates, and then giving a full brief at the end, which, especially to make this public, I just think is a good thing to have, in my opinion. Like, I just think this is a good thing to have. Like I said, highly recommend reading it if you're interested in any of this stuff, or if you know someone, or have a company, or you work for a company that uses AWS and are interested in kind of how it works. Won't go too into it, but I do want to read this article because it was like there was so much happening with it, especially as someone who's just kind of experiencing it and not really diving too deep into it until about an hour ago. I just didn't know all about it. Also want to say any advertisements on the screen, not sponsored or anything like that. Ignore them. But outage at Amazon Web Services disrupts the train outside and websites across the internet. And then this is back in what? Oh, okay. And just a conference they had. Okay, whatever. A massive outage at Amazon Web Services disrupted major websites and apps on Monday in a show of how one company's online infrastructure has become essential for many modern businesses to function. Like I said, just the sheer amount of people, like we don't realize how much all these companies are kind of commingled with each other in a sense. I mean, I want to do a video about this eventually, but the giant AI bubble and how they're constantly feeding money out to each other and stuff like that. This is kind of a way to kind of show it. Like if Amazon Web Services were to go down for days to a week, the amount of things that would shut down because of it is insane. And just how many few competitors there are to fight and actually make things not only competitive, but also making sure that we have options if one of them were to go out. Like, I think of, like, the huge thing, what was it, Cloudflare or something like that, back in 2024 or 2023 or something like that, where there was a big issue of every, like, planes couldn't fly pretty much because they couldn't do anything because nothing was working, and all of the different commingling of all the different things, and how pretty much a lot of these companies go to one, maybe two vendors for these things, and in a way they're not having to be competitive with each other because it's only them or maybe one other person has the option, so they can set the pace of how much do we want to innovate and put money into innovation instead of just profits. Anyway, Amazon said it was fixing the problem, but some disruptions were ongoing as of Monday evening. It is now, as far as I can see, fully up, and this even says as of 3:53 PDT, it is up pretty much, which was trying to translate time zones. Hold up. That's what? About 2 hours ago, something like that. I call that a win. But anyway, back to the article. Tech experts tell NPR the incident highlights just how vulnerable companies are to these kind of outages. Here's what you know what happened and why a single outage could be so damaging. Amazon reported, quote, increased error rates and latencies starting around 3 a.m. ET that involved its facility in Northern Virginia. Trying not to cough, it's not working. Users reported trouble with popular websites and apps, including Duolingo and online games like Roblox and Fortnite. Financial services like Coinbase and Robinhood and Venmo has reported disruptions, as well as the company that operated Perplexity and ChatGPT. Amazon said its main website was unaffected. That later turned out not to be true. United Airlines, Canva, Reddit, and Flickr also acknowledged problems with their website. The Associated Press and NPR and New York Times games also had issues, which I'm assuming this is why they are reporting on it. It said late Monday that they were, quote, making progress. I'm assuming it took time for them to write the article. But anyway, how Amazon's cloud computing powers much of the internet. Amazon's cloud computing service, AWS, is an invisible scaffolding that helps much of the internet function. AWS lets companies store and manage data online using its database like blah, blah, blah. I already explained a lot of this. In other words, they rent out cloud computing resources to others so they can serve their own customers. So basically, so they don't have to hold in everything. And that's how you have Cloudflare. There's a bunch of other ones. And by a bunch of other ones, I think there's like 3 different ones. There's 3 different big ones. That you can basically, it's like a hosting / database / a thing that you connect to. Because keep in mind, a lot of these places, even if it's just the database and they store their platform on a whole other device, you have to have their data to be able to have the rest of it function. Because if you don't have the data of the logins, no one can log in. But anyway, an early morning software update to DynamoDB, however, contained an error which looked like took down the service in Northern Virginia. Oh, okay, that's great. The error within the update then caused a chain reaction of service failures and disruptions. It says Amazon says it has invested more than $50 billion in data centers in the state, which is home to the largest data centers in the U.S. I could see that, because 1, you're pretty close to DC, but 2, I can see a lot of, especially Northern Virginia, where it's kind of rural, but also pretty close to the cities and stuff like that. I see land being pretty cheap, so you have a bunch of stuff there. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Anyway, Amazon's importance in cloud computing has a mixed bag of customers. According to Synergy Research Group, AWS holds about 30%, with other big players are Microsoft and Google. Betsy Cooper, a cybersecurity expert and the director of Aspen's Institute Policy Academy, I can totally talk today, says there are pros and cons to companies using Amazon or other big providers for cloud computing. They offer strong cybersecurity, protections, and convenience. And also, what's nice about a lot of these is, as well as if something happens to their data, in a way they're responsible, but they are not 100% liable, which helps the smaller companies deal with that as well, especially in many circumstances. If it is like, let's say AWS gets hacked and a bunch of data is lost and stolen or whatever, in a way the company who they were signed up with is responsible, but also Amazon or whatever company they were using to protect their data is also responsible, because there was a contract between them. I don't know exactly, it would probably depend up to a jury what percentage that would be, but it kind of helps with liability in that way. And also just, if they're able to protect this large amount of data, it makes it's easier for a smaller company, instead of having to try to build all this out, cybersecurity, etc. They can just pass it over to an Amazon until they're either bigger and want to invest that into themselves, or just keep it over there for ease and convenience and don't have to pay people, etc. Anyway, we all have an incentive to use big companies because they're ubiquitous and easier to access all the data in one place. That's exactly what I said. She said, but there's a downside. That's great until something goes wrong, and then you see just how dependent you are on a handful of companies. Amazon is a financial supporter of NPR and pays to distribute some of NPR's content. Microsoft and Google are also NPR official financial supporters. Wow, yay, okay. But that's really all I wanted to talk about that with it. I think it's definitely interesting to see how much all of these companies are commingled and how much they use each other to do things. But 2, I just find it interesting how, like, I don't think we're gonna see more and more of this happening, but especially since when it does happen, a lot of, like, it's becoming less and less mainstream news. So I'm curious exactly if it's going to get worse or if it's just going to become more average occurrences or if it's going to become better and we don't hear. I would rather hear about it and know about it than it happening in the background and not hearing about it. But I do wonder what the future of these outages are going to come to. But until then, we got a game to play.